Appreciate you all coming on the podcast. It's cool to have you on from multiple perspectives, obviously, as bodybuilders, as people within the fitness world, people obviously too within the podcasting world. And I want to talk about all those things and how they kind of interconnect. And so kind of without further ado, let's get this thing going.
Thank you for having us on.
Yeah. And if you want, let's kind of start off. I'll have whoever wants to go first kind of introduce yourself a little bit, then the other person go, and then we'll get into it from there a little bit.
You go, Lisa. You go.
Okay. All right. So my name's Lisa Saygun. I'm from Australia. I'm 42, mother of a 7-year-old beautiful little boy. And I've been competing, oh goodness, it'll be my 19th year in different federations. And in the last, I'd say from 2017, I started with the IFBB here in Australia, and turned pro last March, April. So that was exciting. So now, there's no pro shows in Australia, so we'll be heading overseas. In terms of, my whole life has been dedicated to health and fitness. So I work with women in health and also in the competitive world as well. So whether it's prepping them for a show or whether it's, body transformation or helping them with their health, that's my jam. And then, Rose and I have known each other for, since mid-2000s, I'd say. And then just kind of connected over COVID in Australia here. We had a tough time here. We did, didn't we?
And we did. You more so than me.
yeah. We had I was in Melbourne before I moved to Queensland, and we had 2.5 years of lockdowns. There were 5K radius perimeters that we couldn't leave. There were no gyms open, no restaurants open, nothing was opened. So I prepped through that. 10 lockdowns, 10 cancellations of shows, you name it. And then this year, Rose and I, we spoke about it last year, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
We just wanted to do something that was for women in our sport. We're very passionate about women in fitness and bodybuilding, and about building a community and kind of bringing everyone together and creating like a resource center, a place where we could inspire and motivate and educate women who want to go down this road of competing or want to receive advice or insight into what it takes to be an athlete at different stages and different levels. So we just decided to get that up and running, and it was as simple as pressing buttons until something worked like this. So we realized that there's a record button on Zoom. That was it. We just pressed record and we're like, well, let's just SMS them people, or let's just go on Instagram and, and reach out to these Olympians and these pros. And you know what? We were really surprised how humble and generous people were with their time.
So my name is Rose Black, and I am, I'll be 42 this year as well, later in the year. I've been competing since about 2012, so about 11 years, and I went pro in 2019 at the Arnold Classic Australia, and was invited to come back in 2020 to make my pro debut, and that was going to be a huge show, and some amazing figure athletes were coming over from the States, and it was cancelled. I think it was 5 days out that we were all waiting with bated breath, and it was kind of like, no, it's going to be on. Yes, it's going to be on. No, it may not be. Just stand by. And the day before I was due to travel up, they said, no, it's definitely been cancelled. So that was a shame. I am going to be making my pro debut later this year in October. And I'll be doing the Legion Sports Fest over in Reno, Nevada. So I'm really excited about that. And I just love the sport. I do work full time, but I do some online coaching for women in the transformation space. So I'm not like Lisa. I sort of tend to stay with transformational women. And because a bit like you were talking about before, confidence level wise, I think, to be a prep coach, you need to have a really high level of expertise. And I'm just not quite there yet. Not to say that I'll never get to that point, but at this stage, I prefer to stick with my transformation girls. And I've learned so much from Lisa. I'm so blessed and honored to know this woman, because we kind of came together at a really tough time in both of our lives, in terms of we were locked down. We just sort of really came together, and we'd always liked each other and sort of wanted to get to know each other. And then we just hit it off. And then it was like, wow, this podcast came about, and it happened so organically. It just was like it was calling to us and saying, do this. And she mentioned it to me. She's like, oh, you know what I've always wanted to do? I've always wanted to do a podcast. And I was like, oh my God, me too. I have always wanted to do it, but I don't have the confidence to do it by myself. And she was like, I've been the same. So we decided, press buttons until something works. And that's where we're at now. And I think we're 16 episodes down now.
Yes. Yep. It was the 19th of January. That was our first podcast with James Stokes. He's a promoter over in Asia, and he recently put on the Singapore Pro, and amazing human being. And I was in Thailand at the time on holidays with my son, and he's like, well, let's just get on. And I was like, oh, I don't even know how to do this. Like, we haven't even set it up around in my hotel room.
I think we're going to do this, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but let's just do it. Are you right to go? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm ready.
We go. So we completely added lip. And I think, one of the most important things for us is, well, Rose and I are perfectionists. And so we don't like to start anything without being a perfectionist. And we're like, can I swear in here? Because this is the exact words. I'm like, fuck it, right? Let's just press record and let's just go for it. Let's just get started. I think we and then you have this momentum going, and then you get on this high at the end of the episode, and we're like, yes, fuck yeah, we just did that. High-fiving each other and what have you. But one of the I think take-home messages is that in anything that you do, don't wait to be perfect, because you'll be waiting forever. And just get started.
Yeah. We had sort of visions when we first started talking about it. We had visions of, a suite, and we were going to hire something and hire all of the professional equipment and get somebody to actually, film it. And then we sort of started seeing that there were a lot more organic type podcasts that were kind of really getting momentum, and that people seem to enjoy that sort of look of being a little bit less produced. And then I actually spoke with a friend of mine who is actually a marketing expert and does this for a living, helps people to maximize their online presence in mainstream media, things like that. And he was saying, look, I've just curated this video for this client, and it was smick. It was, professionally done. It was very expensive for the client to actually engage in that process. And they uploaded it. It didn't get very many views. It didn't get very much traction. And then 2 weeks later, he just uploaded this very unpolished sort of video for the same client, and it went viral. And so he was saying, look, there's definitely a shift in the market around what people are looking for.
Yeah. And what we're starting to realize is authenticity, organic, raw, real, unpolished is the new currency in terms of, connection, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. And it's interesting how, I've been doing this the last almost 3 years. I can't it's becoming so hard, I feel like, and there's definitely experts out there who can like say this is what you should put, this is how you should do it, this is all the steps, all the things you should do to maximize the potential of something. But I have almost no clue whether something's going to be like received well or not. I can't be like, oh, this is a great clip, it's going to get a lot of views, and this other thing, maybe not as good, it's not going to. And it could be literally reversed in the amount of views that I think something's going to get. And it's almost like you have to think about too, like, what are your intentions? Are your intentions to get those views? Or your intentions to spread, of course you want to reach as many people as possible with your message, of course, but if that's the only thing that you're thinking about, not the fact that even if you help one person, that's a benefit, then I think you're going to get lost in the is this enough views? Is this enough likes? Is this going to be good enough for people?
That's so on point, isn't it, Rose? We think we speak about that. We're like, gosh, if we get one person listening to our podcast, we'll be great, because we're doing it because we have a genuine passion about women in fitness. And it was actually going to be just figure, and because that's our arena. We want
our category, the one that we compete in, and
and you hear in the industry that, figures a dying breed, or then you see at certain shows where they've actually eliminated figure and what have you, and I'm like, no, this is the original bodybuilding for women, right? This, and there are amazing athletes, like freaking incredible figure athletes. We want to revive it and bring it out. There's heaps of bikini podcasts, and there's even lots of wellness ones now, and there weren't very many figure ones. And then we kind of got into it, and we're like, you know what, Rose, like, we want to be celebrating women that are in the field of bodybuilding and under the umbrella of bodybuilding. You've got bikini girls, like we had Ashley Kaltwasser on last week, 3 times.
That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, so good.
Like,
such a lovely woman.
Yeah. And, we've had, Missy on as well, she's a fitness competitor. And we were going to have Issa on, and then, her internet went down. So, we're kind of going back to that. We're going to have to kind of recycle that one around. But, we just realized that whether the athlete is choosing to be bikini or fitness or figure or wellness or physique or bodybuilding, they all have, these incredible qualities that and have achieved incredible success in their chosen field. And there is a common link between all of them, like, their determination, their discipline, their passion, their commitment, and their inner strength, that, like, they're all common. So why would we want to limit it to just figure athletes? And you mentioned before about, if we were nervous reaching out, and the truth is we're probably more nervous because we've watched these athletes for years. Like, I got goosebumps, like decades.
Me too. Decades. That I mean, Wendy Fortino, when she came on, I was literally jittery mess. I was shaking and I was so nervous. I said to Lisa, I've got to calm myself down. I'm talking to Wendy Fortino. This is incredible. She said yes, that she would come on our podcast.
Her words were, I would be delighted to. And I was like, oh my goodness. It's like, imagine you watching a movie, your favorite movie with your, like, I don't know, Fast and the Furious with Vin Diesel or The Rock or something like that. And you just, inbox him and say, hey, Rock, Dwayne Johnson, how would you like to come onto our podcast? And then all of a sudden he goes, yeah, no worries. I'd be delighted to. And next minute you're in them. Like, it was at that level for us. So we were literally starstruck. Like, that is the playing field that, like, in terms of our mentality, that we were, what we were feeling at the time, we were so elated.
Yeah.
Yes. And we still are. When we, reach out to people and they say, yeah, no worries, we'd love to come on, we're like, oh my God, like especially Ashley, who has a huge following, and is so inspirational. She, a lot of women in Australia follow her, a lot of the athletes in Australia follow her. And so that's kind of why we were like, oh, she would be fantastic to get on, because she has a very long history in the sport as well. So many great messages and inspiration to kind of pass on to these girls. And yeah, she was the same, just so humble.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It is interesting. And I reached out and I had the pleasure of talking to Sid Gillian on the podcast in January. And to me, it was almost like this experience of how did this happen? You know, going from talking to basically either me by myself or me and like my sister to which like, you know, going back to what I said, everybody has value in what their conversation is. So I'm not saying like that hers was more valuable per se, but it was just amazing that like I was able to have this person on.
You know, and I think it also comes down to as well, you know, you being quite authentic and real yourself. And, you know, you're doing a good thing. And, you know, and I think and this is what I think we're starting to find as well, is that the right athletes and the right people will naturally gravitate to you anyway. And they're the ones that you want on, you know, they're the ones that you want on your podcast. They're the ones that you want your listeners listening to.
We like to try and do too. We sort of want to, we try to ask questions that get into that place. Because I think a lot of competitors, they kind of moved away from podcasts for a while because it's sort of the same sorts of questions. And, you know, you can ask an individual athlete.
What's your favorite cheat meal, for example?
Yeah. And like,
we've never asked that. And then Ashley, so sorry, I'm interrupting, but Ashley last week, you know, we were interviewing her. She's like, I know you girls are good at what you do because you didn't ask me what my favorite cheat food was.
It's funny that people have mentioned that to me too, so it really must be a pretty big thing. But
I didn't even compute in our brain to even ask that, did it?
Yeah, there's certain times like for that content, I think, but I think a podcast it's such like this opportunity for a deep connection, for a conversation.
Yeah, and that's probably why you do have a successful podcast, because you're actually interested in what they're saying. I think, you know, for us it's the same thing. We just want to ask a couple of questions, but then organically the person will begin to talk. And you'll just find points along the way that you're like, wow, that's really interesting. So it's never manufactured. We have actually, originally we were going to research our guests really heavily, but then we were like, why? I want to go into this conversation not knowing anything really about our guests and just finding out, and don't want to go in there with an agenda, or don't want to go in there with like a preconceived notion of this person, or like what we think this person is like, or what we think they might want to be asked. We just want to go in there and have it really just come out the way that it does.
It's funny, you know, sometimes people ask, you know, what questions so I can prepare, and I'm like, here's some general things, but I don't want to feel like it's an interview as much as it kind of is still. I want it to just be like people hanging out.
We've had that too. Like, we don't have scripted questions. I'm sorry.
We're like, we just want to go in and kind of ad lib. In fact, you know, I find that I mess up more if there is an agenda, if it is scripted, because I'm literally reading from my notes all the time, and I just, I was never good at that at school. You know, you have to get up to the front of a classroom and like present a topic. Mine would be literally improvised. I'd never research. I'd never do anything. You know, back in those days, they didn't have the internet. It was books and photocopies at the library of paper. And that's pretty much it.
So much, you know, artificial intelligence that'll write your speech for you. So
oh wow, oh my god, isn't that's crazy, that artificial, oh wow, I'm scared of that AI.
It was just on the radio yesterday here in Queensland, where these two radio hosts were like afraid that their jobs were going to be taken away from them because there's this new software program that's just come out. And basically, you know, you could type in a topic, which is a man found an alligator at his front door, went to answer the door and had his arm bit when he opened up, right? And this was actually a true story that happened in Outback, Australia.
Wow.
Welcome to Australia.
Yeah, either that or snakes, I feel like, is the two.
Mate,
spiders,
like,
don't forget our
Oh,
spiders.
yeah,
We've got
that's
some
true.
great spiders
they're
too.
everywhere. It's Queensland. Oh, and obviously Outback, New South Wales for you as well. And they're like, right, so we've got this software program that can actually generate what conversations and topics we can have. And they're like, they plugged that in and out came like a whole series of different questions and topics that they could ask their audience.
Yeah.
On the radio, and they're like, oh, we're obsolete now, we're out.
It's scary to think like what jobs are going to be cut out, because it's so smart. Like even with like, it can create artwork, it can create music, it can create all stories, books, it's just so weird to think, where are we going to be? Because if we're in a state right now to where we are so sedentary because our jobs are much more, just sitting. We're using our brains more, which is great. But now with artificial intelligence, are we going to be even using our brains as much? So it's like our bodies are withering. Next, is it going to be our brains? Like what's the future going to look like in 50 or 100 years?
I think the scariest part for me about AI, are doctors and nurses actually going to be doing their coursework, or are we going to be being operated on by people that that really have just used AI to pass all of their that's someone sort of said that the other day, and I read it and I was like, oh my God, I didn't even think of that. That is terrifying.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below. It's interesting because in a sport like bodybuilding, I feel like it's almost like an extreme sport nowadays, because you have to like go against the grain in so many ways. You have to have so much discipline. You have to utilize your body in a way that is just not really commonplace anymore. You have to utilize your mindset in a way that isn't really commonplace. And so I think it's even going to become even more of this like almost hardcore kind of thing moving forward, because we as a human race, what is it going to look like? And I think bodybuilding is almost like the complete opposite of where we're headed.
There is just so much to unpack there.
Same.
You just said, my brain's going.
Remember, the FemFlex Friday girls were talking about this very similar topic, just saying that, the body positivity movement and how it's sort of going against what we as healthy female physique competitors or competitors in general, it's sort of shaming us for looking after our bodies and saying, you shouldn't be allowed to be like that because you might make somebody who's overweight feel bad. And it's like, no one's trying to make anyone feel bad. It's about health and fitness, and women who are in our sport really value our internal and our external health. I mean, the external appearance is just, it's a plus. I do this sport because I love what it does for my insides. I'm, better cardiovascular health, better energy levels, just better health in general.
Right.
And also it slows down the aging process. Like both Rose and I are, well into our 40s, and, me being in the industry now for 23 years as a health coach and 19 years competing, I see girls that are in their early 20s, late teens, early 20s, and they and I'm assessing their blood work, and they've already got early signs of diabetes, hormonal issues as well, and fertility issues, just cholesterol through the roof, mental health has gone AWOL, and it's really scary. And on that note as well, when I first studied my what we would call here in Australia a personal training course, there were parameters of what would be considered healthy body weight, BMI, and body fat. Now, for example, back when in 1997, when I first did my course, before I went to uni, the normal body fat levels for a woman was 18 to 22% here in Australia. That was normal, right? Just what to be expected, right? Today, I've got girls that are doing their Cert 3 and Cert 4 courses that are my clients, and 28 to 33%. So over a third of a woman's body weight or a person's body weight is deemed as normal.
Wow.
Whereas anything over 25%, and you're already like a quarter of your total mass being fat, is already having impacts on your health, on your heart health, on your cardiovascular health, on your endocrine health, your body's ability to be able to, reproduce if you're a woman, or, a man, their test levels tend to go down at that point as well, when their body fat levels go up. So mental health declines, you're not creating those positive, happy hormones like oxytocin, endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, all of them, they start going downwards. And then you're having these, then your neural pathways as well, which is pretty much the thing that runs the show. The brain tells the body what to do, starts to decay. So we're in that world now. We have more information, more AI, more health experts, yet we have more disease. And we are the fattest we have ever been in the
history. And that's crazy. Yeah. And isn't that crazy that we have more science and more knowledge now, but the societal trend, I guess, is to everyone must feel good about themselves, and let's not make anyone feel bad about themselves. We couldn't possibly have anyone feeling bad that they're, that they're overweight. But really, we're killing them with kindness.
Yeah.
We're killing them with being kind, and that's actually not kindness. That's what I find so frustrating about, this movement. And I actually had someone write on a recent post. I was sort of writing about women's health, and I think it was actually promoting my business and saying, if you do want some help or you need some advice around your food and your nutrition, reach out to me. Well, this woman wrote, how dare you make women who are overweight feel bad? And I'm thinking, I'm offering you an olive branch. I'm saying I don't have any. I would care less about someone being overweight. I don't look at someone and go, oh, you're disgusting and gross. I don't. But if they are not happy with themselves and they're overweight and they're unhealthy and they're suffering, I want to help them. I want to be able to show them, hey, guess what? There's another life that you could lead, and you could be so much happier and healthier. It's not about your appearance. It's about what's going on the inside. But yeah, it's
the effects, and the effects of being good here on the inside, and up here is the outside.
Yeah.
Going to show that.
No, I saw and I repost it every time I see it, because I think it's a just brilliant quote or whatever it is, and it says, the modern medical system is so advanced that we hardly have a healthy human left. And I think that just encompasses, like, we have all these solutions for what happens after you get messed up, but we don't want to help people before that.
It's like the healthy food pyramid. It's completely upside down. I mean, I just look at it and think, and I actually did a nutrition course and I got through it, but I was thinking, I'm not going to retain any of this because it's all wrong. It's all incorrect and scientifically incorrect. That was the scariest part about it. it's almost as though we have all of this data that says, hey, if your body fat percentage gets beyond a certain point, things inside you are going to suffer. But do you know what? We've got a tablet that you can take when that happens. So don't worry about it. Just keep eating whatever you want. And then we'll earn money off you when we give you the tablet to fix it. The thing that we created, we helped you create.
Yeah.
And here's another tablet to counteract the effects and the side effects
of the tablet that we're giving you.
You're 100%
because this
right.
tablet is going to have side effects. So we need to give you another tablet for the side effects. Yeah. And, that's why I am passionate about it because, there are people in my family who are overweight and, one person in my family is on 7 different medications. I had a client who was on 10 medications, diabetic medication, blood pressure medication, cholesterol medication. Within 6 months of working with me, her doctor said, we need to wean you off all of these. You don't actually require them anymore. And she could not believe it. She lost 30 kilos and became a completely different person who was more confident, way healthier.
Yeah. It's amazing, like in the time that we live in, how it feels like science has become an opinion instead of like what science really should be. You talked about the food pyramid, and there was something that came out here in the US that I can't remember what exactly it was. It wasn't a pyramid, but it was something like rating food. And it was just mind-boggling how all these processed foods, I think Honey Nut Cheerios and like, I can't remember what the other one was, but it was something crazy. It was like a head of like the chicken and the head of like the eggs and the head of like all these other natural foods. It was just like, who is sponsoring this research? Who is benefiting from this?
Oh my goodness, we have that here, it's like Cocoa Pops has got 4 stars, but then, oats, because they've got gluten in them, suddenly go down to, 3 stars and is less healthier than Cocoa Pops.
Yeah.
It's madness. And then you think, why are people overweight? That's why, because they're not receiving the right education. And I feel sorry for people because they've been fed a lie and they've unfortunately, swallowed it and sink up.
They've been fed marketing is what they've been fed.
Yeah. And I think, big pharma and big medicine have so much to answer for.
I can't remember. I don't know if you guys listen to the Joe Rogan podcast at all, but there was
I do. I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan, massive Joe Rogan.
There's one person that doesn't on this planet.
he was like one of my biggest influencers in the podcasting world. But I can't remember who he had on, but it was just like this guy talking about the layers and the levels of like basically corruption and I think he used to be a basically a person who goes around and sells different medication too. Yeah, he went around and sold different medication, and he like was so good at it, but he just realized how messed up the system was. Now you have from wherever it's coming from, whether I don't know if it's government or what, but pushing this like the new mindset of if you are healthy, you're almost like subconsciously making people feel bad, and you're if you're overweight, it's okay because this, that, and the other, and it's not your fault. And it's like where is all this going to lead? It's just it's interesting. It's kind of scary.
It's very scary. And it's so right. Like, let's look at it this way. Let's look at the most recent. We're probably going to go down the rabbit hole here, but I'm going to say it. Let's look at COVID. Let's look at the last 3 years. Let's look at that is probably the biggest, most significant, impactful event of our era to date. And, before we look at, the effects of what's happened, to add to what you were saying, doctors were getting kickbacks off, giving people their shots, even when it wasn't recommended that they get their shots.
Yeah.
Just
So there was,
because they got $123 per person that was injected here in Australia. All right. Every single person, every single jab. Right. Now, if you look at, if we're looking in Australia, there are literally hundreds and thousands of people that have been injured. And we know this is worldwide, but that have been injured from this COVID vaccine. Okay. And, I'm not trying to be, a conspiracy theorist or anything, but the point that I was trying to make is that medical professionals get remunerated for, incentivized, the same way an athlete would by promoting a product, a supplementation, getting a discount code or something like that, or utilizing certain products. And, a prime example of that is, my son was born with half a heart. He spent most of his life in and out of hospital. He's, one of the side effects of pericarditis is pericarditis and myocarditis with the vaccine. Now, the doctors in his hospital said, oh, we want to triage him because we wouldn't want him to get COVID. And I said, but the vaccine side effects is pericarditis and myocarditis. And you want to put that into a child who is, at the time, he was 4 years old, which could ultimately cause death as well. I need to understand the logic, and they couldn't give me an explanation. And when I went against it, they wouldn't let him come to the hospital for his treatments.
Wow.
So, this is, like you were saying, a system that is really messed up.
and it's like there was that drug, I think it was called, what was the drug? It was a pain medication, Vioxx. It killed hundreds of thousands of people in America. And the company knew before they actually released that drug onto the market that it would cause death in certain people. But it was still pushed. And even after people began dying, there was actually emails released on that about saying, well, actually, yeah, we know, but hey, we're making a good, sweet amount of cash here. So there was that justification that, we've paid for this medication to be created, so now we have to get it out there. And, oh, well, if we lose a few 100,000 people, so be it. And that is seriously the mentality of big pharma. And I've even heard now in relation to the vaccination, people saying, oh, well, yeah, we know that there's side effects. Oh, but the risk outweighs the benefit outweighs the risk, when in fact, now that, we have the latest strain in that the whole risk to benefit ratio has completely flipped on its head, but they're still doing the same thing and pushing them. So it's, it's madness.
Yeah, and you can't watch TV these days in America. I don't know. I know there are some countries that have outlawed prescription or pharmaceutical companies to run advertising on TV, but here in America, you can't watch anything for longer than, one commercial break without seeing advertisements for at least some kind of prescription. I mean, literally, there's people who aren't even on these prescription drugs that can name off like a ton of them that are on TV just because you see them like every 12 minutes when you go on commercial break. And, Pfizer sponsoring college football and the SEC, which is a division of college football, and, the NBA. And, it's just crazy how it's like, it's just over the last 2 years, no one, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, no one knew what Pfizer was. No one knew what Moderna was. Now it's like, it's everywhere. And I don't, like I said, how is it in Australia? Like what's that cultural, almost like, that infiltration like in Australia?
Well, yeah. Look, I wouldn't say I've been to America, and I was shocked by the amount of ads prescribing medications, and then them talking really, quickly about the potential side effects may cause death, right at the end. We don't have that in Australia. It's not at that extent.
I'm fairly certain they're not allowed to, are they, at this point? They're still not allowed to advertise. So you might see some ads for cold and flu type, when the cold and flu season pops around, you might see some, Duratussin, or here's a dry cough medication, but not really the drugs that you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, it's more the government will come on and do their little, health alert and really push, things like, get your jab, get your flu shot, get your booster shot. That has been constant to the point where I stopped watching TV 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, same.
It's
because it literally is. It's literally like when it first happened, it was constant. It would have been every 12 minutes at least that they were coming on and saying, and then it became, well, not only do you have to take the COVID vaccination, but we also want you to take your flu shot. Oh, don't worry, just take them together. And then it became like, it was just like, oh, and plus, maybe while you're at it, you can get another shot as well for another vaccination. And I'm thinking, what is going on? What is happening? Wouldn't that be dangerous to put all these different drugs in together at the same time? And then they came out and said, oh, actually, spread them apart. And it was just all over the place, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was no continuity at all. And so then, even if you get COVID, technically you're immune to it, right? Because you've had COVID, right?
I can't tell you how many times I've probably had COVID.
And I'm like,
it's like,
well, 3 or 4 times.
2 weeks after you've had COVID, you should go get your shot. It's like, but I have natural immunity now. So why would that wane after 2 weeks?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And it was like, it was everywhere. It was on the radio. It was on social media. You couldn't open your phone without seeing, like a pop-up on
Instagram. I had that COVID thing for forever.
And if you use the word COVID, it would go through fact checkers and it would go through different systems. And if you said anything that was,
Well, on Spotify now, that because we've talked about COVID or even just said it, it'll have that little blue banner under the episode.
Oh, wow. Giddy up. So
us being disruptive, we're just so disruptive, aren't we?
We're supposed to be talking about, bodybuilding and competitions, diets. And now we're, off on this tangent, aren't we?
No, we're extremists.
We are. We definitely are extremists. And, bringing it all back to bodybuilding, we are, considered extreme by the general population, to the point where it's unhealthy, apparently. So, Rose and myself, between the two of us, we've got 40 years experience focusing on our health and our fitness, and, our health is amazing. And
I look at, I recently attended a get together for people I went to school with, and I can tell you right now, I was shocked. I really was shocked when I looked around and I thought, these are all the people I went to school with. And, a lot of the girls everyone had health problems. Everyone was taking a medication. Oh, I've had, really bad problems with my, I've got diabetes now, or I've had problems with my liver, or it seemed like everyone that I spoke to had some form of health, like serious health issue, not just even a mild one. It was, and I'm sitting here thinking, God, I don't even take any medication at all. I don't even take Panadol. I don't have inflammation in my body. I feel well all the time, and I don't need to take medication.
It's almost like in America, at least, it's almost like this 30 years old, right? You hit 30. If you're not on a blood pressure medication at 30, it's like you're this superhuman. It's crazy, like the standard is so low. You barely have to like even try to be in somewhat in the upper echelon of health here. It's pretty nuts.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Like you're starting your life at 30, aren't you? Like
I think, do you know what are the obesity levels? I think in Australia we've had a big rise, haven't we? I'm pretty sure. I have to Google this now.
I don't know the exact ones here, but I do know. I mean, it's insane. I mean,
wow. So 2000. Well, this is in 2005, but it'd be Holy dooly. 2017, 2 out of 3 Australians aged 18 and over were overweight. 67%.
70%. Wow. I was going to say, like,
Whoa.
67, 70% of Australians are overweight.
That's
Oh,
crazy.
that's crazy.
That is crazy. I mean,
But
18 million Australians, and we've got a population of 26 million.
what's going to be that factor that just makes people see it? That, you would think it would be a pandemic, right? You would think it's like, okay, let's see who survived this thing. Let's see who it didn't really have to worry about this thing. Oh, it was these people over here who were being healthy, who were working out, who were eating right, who were insert healthy habit. Like, let's do more of that. No, it's the complete opposite. Now it's like more people, I feel like, around me at least, or not around me really, but that I can see, they party more. It's like, okay, we have a vaccine, so we don't need to worry about getting healthy. We have, it's just all of the short-term thought, I feel like, is just taking over.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's right. It's the short-term thinking. It's not the thinking about, well, what's my health going to look like when I'm 60? And that's like Lisa and I say it all the time. We just want to be those 70-year-old women that are still rocking around, where we don't have a walker. There's no walking frame that we have to rest upon. We're just living life,
Yeah, like when we interviewed Sandy Williamson, right? She
Oh my
told us
God, yes.
she was 72.
72.
72. Holy, she's 80 years off 80, and she doesn't look a day over 50 years old. I was sitting there going, fuck me. Like, literally, it was like, right. And she's come from a medical field herself, hasn't she?
Yes.
Intensive care nurse and what have you. She looks amazing. She looks absolutely amazing. And she's been in this sport since 1980, right? Before we were born. Have a look at that. And now you've got, and this, I think we might have had a conversation about this about a year ago, going, I think our next generation, the millennials or whatever they are, like we're Generation X here, I think they're going to die before us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were worried about it because the amount of young people that you see now, that even like little children who are really overweight, and you think these poor little children, their poor little hearts are, working so hard from, as young as 8, 9 years of age. It's so sad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not only that, but also just the amount of kids on any kind of like mental health drugs, like can't remember the exact numbers. It was something insane though. I just looked it up. It was some number way over 50% though of kids, 18 or younger in America were on. It wasn't on a drug. They were classified as either having anxiety or depression. And it's like
Depression.
like what is it?
And these are the people that are going to be running the country.
Yeah, running the world.
Well, how interesting too that Harvard University actually posted up a research article in 2021, and it was saying clearly that, exercise is actually it's actually more effective in treating depression and anxiety than the medications that, the SSRIs and those sorts of things that are being prescribed. So, and that's why I don't understand the body positivity movement, because it's like they've completely ignored this glaringly obvious and real science, and it's feelings over science. And that's what I find now is happening. People's ideology is overtaking science, and just being sort of, given the spotlight. Oh, well, who cares what the science says? We can't possibly have someone's feelings hurt.
No, it's so weird because I feel like it's been such this cultural flip.
But we're smarter. It's like, how does this happen?
Right. Yeah. It truly goes to show like the power of influence, the power that what you see in front of you, the power that has. And I think if, stuff like this, if we can get people in front of, in social media certainly is a positive in those regards, but it's also been a negative in the algorithm aspect where you don't get shown anything other than what you want to see. So then what's, of course, people are going to believe that that's the only thing out there if that's the only thing they're seeing. So especially during a time like COVID and quarantine, you're not going out, you're not seeing other perspectives. You're on this little device and you're scrolling, and everybody that you see on here is agreeing with you. So everybody else must be crazy.
Everyone's in their own little echo chamber.
Right.
Yeah, it's insane. And I think, that just highlights, why Rose and I, one of the reasons why Rose and I wanted to, go figure, pardon the pun. And it was to educate, to have that resource center, to have that, sounding board where women, young ladies, could come to get the right advice.
Yeah.
And to show them it can be, and to challenge those myths that, women who bodybuild are masculine, we're unhealthy, we look like men, all those sorts of, stereotypes that I think sometimes the women in our sport have placed upon them. And we're like, no, we're here to break those myths.
Or you can't see sport as natural. You have to be enhanced, and you have to be on, those girls, they must be on a lot of, gear, they must be on a lot of drugs. And I'm like, do you know how many times I've done a lat pull down? Do you know how many times in 23 years I've done a squat? And I'm not pro or against any of it, like it's kind of like bringing
what happens in the sport. Yeah.
I don't think it's about like you said, I don't think it's about saying that bodybuilding is like nobody's using drugs in bodybuilding. I think it's about saying that you can live the lifestyle without that, and you can see a lot of the same results, and you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. And to me, that's been actually a big factor that I also want to kind of spread, is getting to talk to bodybuilders. It's humanized the bodybuilders. It's like you see them as these, mythical creatures. At least I kind of saw them, when I was younger, especially like the older generation of bodybuilders. I saw it more as like this. It was like this very, very small, almost superhuman kind of capacity of person. And now I think there's so many different cool things, with the new classes, new divisions and things. With social media has helped to create this kind of community to where it has been more opened up. It's like, oh, look at all these people who with different body types, with different, goals, with different, because, I've talked to somebody who's literally was doing their first show, and I've talked to people who, have competed at the Olympia multiple times and
won the Olympia.
Yeah.
Who have won the Olympia multiple times. Sid Gillen.
Dan Solomon said Olympia is like the top of the mountain. Yesterday he did a like a post talking about, how the Olympia has evolved, and it really is the top of the mountain. And so to say that you've had people from here to that end it's actually quite incredible, because there are common themes between whether you're a beginner or whether you're an Olympian on stage.
Right.
Bodybuilding, if we break that down, bodybuilding, not body breaking. we're building a body. And so today's society, they hear the word bodybuilder and they think, people in Australia, we call them budgie smugglers, which are like, little
like speedos.
little jobs, and flaunting out bums around everywhere and all that sort of jazz. And I'm like, well, no, bodybuilding is something that you do to build your body. And it is a lifelong, and in a society where we are wanting instant results and instant gratifications and everything yesterday, this is why the perception has led to down this path of bodybuilding is an extreme sport, because, I want to win Miss Olympia tomorrow. And so I need to be on all of that and be training in the gym 7 hours a day, and I need a sponsor to pay for my chicken and broccoli and all the rest of it. The end. Whereas that's not how it started back in my day.
Right.
It
I
didn't
think,
start like that. It
well, I think,
started us going into the gym to build our confidence levels up. I was a little Porky Pig kid. I was that one. I was a little meatball, a little Italian Turkish meatball that would literally eat her weight in calories before breakfast every morning. That was me. I didn't come from a sporting background like Rose. I came from an
And
ethnic
so
family.
it's for everyone. It just goes to prove that it is a sport that literally anybody can enter and build their body. And this is kind of, a controversial statement, but to me, if you're in the gym and you're training, you're building your body, you're a bodybuilder. You're a bodybuilder. It doesn't matter if you're not on a stage. You're building your body. You're doing something for your body.
yeah.
And I really believe that. And some people are like, oh no, you're not a bodybuilder until you've stepped on stage and you've won Mr. Olympia. No, I think that is also a myth that I like to kind of get rid of, because if you're in there and you're training and you're doing something for your body, you're building it and you're a bodybuilder.
It's a lifestyle, it's a way of life. It's almost like a thought pattern. And because I'd never have competed, and I don't know if I ever will compete. It's been so inspired. I think, bodybuilding and Arnold Schwarzenegger in particular, he's been my guiding light or whatever you want to call it, from the beginning. The world of bodybuilding has influenced me in where I am today, for sure. I mean, I never would have started working out. I never would have thought about what I eat. It never would have, I never would have went to college and got my degree in exercise science. I never would have tried all the different paths that I've tried. Wouldn't be here today talking with you all if it wasn't for the sport. So it really does. It's given me so much. And I know it can give tons of people, even if they don't compete, it can give them so much.
Exactly right. And also just highlight that we are normal people as well.
Yeah.
Like, we're mums and we're the chef and we're the cleaner. And you know what, we're the chauffeur as well that drops the kids off at school. Like we are just normal people. And I would say probably more so with the Australians than, the American pro athletes on that level. And I'm generalizing I'm not saying this is everyone, but because in Australia, there aren't as many professional athletes and there's no professional shows in Australia at all. So we have to go overseas, and our dollar's like 65 cents to the US dollar. So it's very expensive.
I'm just experiencing that right now, booking all of my stuff.
To go.
Like, oh my God, maybe I should wait a couple, more months until the dollar picks up a little.
Yeah, it's insane. And when it comes to sponsorship, we don't have sponsorship like America. Like, we don't get paid wages when we're a pro athlete to do pro circuits. We get a discount code if we're lucky. We'll get a few $100 a month in products. So we need to have a full-time job. We need to have a career, and it's our career, and our full-time job that funds our passion. Our passion is bodybuilding, the one that we've been doing for the last 20 years,
Yeah.
So it's very different like that. So it's, and I know there are people all over the world in the same boat as Rose and I as well. So being able to, highlight that in our podcast, and like what we're talking about right now, it doesn't matter what your walk of life is, it's a way of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. And you mentioned that, like, how for you guys, it's this, it truly is about the love of it. Because there's, doing it for the money, there's people I think that are out there that are strictly doing it because they were kind of, they had the love of it and they're blessed with good genes, and then boom, they're put in this situation where they do succeed.
Yeah.
And they're and it turns into, we're doing it for the money, and everything is, we can't post this on social media because we'll lose a sponsor. We can't, we have to meet this person because if we don't, then we'll lose money or whatever it is. And then there's people, and I'm not discounting that because, if that's their way of doing it, that's fine. And then there's people who have 3 kids, who are single moms, who are, working night shift, who are figuring it out, who are, I've just talked to too many people. And like you said, I know that if you want to do it, it's possible. And I take that inspiration from all my guests really, but even going back to what I said before about Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I've watched Pumping Iron probably like 150 times, and
Yeah.
just I see all the things that he did, and that inspires me to this day of like, well, if he can work out how many ever times a day he was doing in his crazy routines, and if he can go to night school and he can do his whatever, I can't remember, the construction business or whatever he was doing, and if he can do all that, then I can do my full-time job and come home and work on the podcast, and I can go work out early in the morning. It's like, to me, that's more motivational. That, to me, that's more about what bodybuilding is. It's the struggle, it's the grind, but it's overcoming that. And it's less of like the money. It's less of like the show and the glow of it.
You're talking about your purpose, essentially, which is that higher purpose, the legacy that you want to leave, the reason why you're here doing this. It goes beyond yourself.
Yeah.
It represents something that's so much higher than ego.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, ego is good, right? When we get on stage, we've got our alter ego.
God, yeah, my alter ego, she's the girl that I am on stage, I don't even know who she is. So I'm just like, God, I'm glad you're here. Can you take it from here, please? Just
like,
autopilot, please. Just, I just kind of like go down in her, and she comes out.
It's like, I'm probably what they refer to as a tomboy, or a bogan, which is like almost like a redneck, wouldn't it? It would, yeah.
Redneck, yeah. Bogan would be equivalent to a redneck.
Yeah. But when I'm on stage, I am on fire. I am a queen. I am out there. And so it's good to have that, because I think it's good for your ego as well. But then, if you're going through life and you don't know what your calling is, or you don't know what your core values are, or your purpose, or your mission, then you're never going to, in my personal opinion, reach that true level of happiness. You're going to be looking for happiness in things. You're going to be looking for happiness in other people. You're going to be trying to fill voids. And I can honestly, you agree, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and that's what I was just thinking. Bodybuilding creates that, because when you're going in and you're working on yourself, whether it's sticking to your plan, your nutrition plan, or you're going into the gym and you're training every day, you're actually building self-trust. You're building a confidence level in yourself that, you know what, I can create a goal, and I'm showing myself every day that I'm going to meet that goal. It creates this momentum inside of you, where you just want to keep achieving, because it's like, well, okay, well, yeah, I'm 2 weeks into this. I'm doing my nutrition. I'm training every day, and you get stronger and stronger and stronger. I initially started out to rehab my shoulder. I was doing swimming, master swimming. I'd been a really great swimmer when I was a kid, and did very well, and then was out of the pool for many years and came back to the pool as a masters athlete. And my shoulder started playing up. So that's how I got into it. And it just changed my life. It transformed the way that I thought about everything, and the way that I thought about myself, and and the belief I had in myself. And now I'm at a point where I feel like I could achieve anything, because I've consistently proven to myself over the last 10 years that I can be disciplined. I can create a goal and achieve it. I can set myself some target that I don't think is achievable, but then I do. So, when you do that consistently over 10 years, the mindset at the end of that is I feel like a different person.
There's so many people out there who just don't believe that they can, whether that's like a truly they don't believe it, or it's like a defense mechanism so they don't try it. But I don't know. I just think there's this sadness in that. There's this hopelessness in saying I can't, or I wish I could, that if we can just flip that around and make people see that it really isn't, it doesn't take a certain special type of person. It's not the person that necessarily even loves it. It's not the person that has the genes or is gifted. It's the person who is just literally getting up at 4 a.m. and doing the cardio before they have to go into work. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
anything that that person was necessarily born with. It's just they did it, and now they, that, like you said, that mindset that switches from I can'ts to alls they did was do a little bit of thing, a little action, and then
Yeah.
it starts
I
to flip to
remember,
I can.
yeah, I remember walking into the gym when I first went there and I was shaking. I'd never been in the weights room. I'd never picked up a weight, even though I'd been an athlete growing up as a swimmer. We didn't have weights out in my small country town. So the gym was very, very confronting to me when I first entered it. And I remember, yeah, absolutely being so frightened. But I just kept going. And even though I was uncomfortable, I pushed through it. And now it's like I could walk into any gym anywhere in the world and feel like I belonged there. Not because I have a big ego, but because I'm there for me. I don't really care what anyone thinks anymore. It's changed so many aspects of my mentality to being my authentic self, like we've been talking about through the podcast. And I like going to the gym, so no one's going to stop me from doing that now. So yeah, big journey, and I'm so happy I found bodybuilding, because it really did save my life in many ways too, because I had an eating disorder when I was younger, and bodybuilding actually completely cured me of that, because I realized I needed fuel I needed to fuel my body. I needed to give it what it required to grow and be healthy. And it completely changed my whole mindset about starving myself and wanting to be thin and small. And yeah, so that's why I think we're so passionate about saying to women, move your body, get into the gym,
Even if you don't believe, even if you don't believe in yourself, even if you don't believe it's going to be possible, whatever, still have that mindset if you want to have that mindset, but do the opposite behavior.
Yes, because
So,
only the
like,
behavior matters.
go
This
to the
can say
behavior.
whatever.
Yeah. I'm like, and I've had clients before, I'm like, just walk into the gym, sit down on those little, the recumbent bikes, that the ones that you sit back on and you just pedal your, not those ones.
Yeah.
Like just sit on there. Don't even press any buttons. Just sit on there, put your favorite music on, sit there for like 5 minutes. And if you don't like it, walk out. Then the next day, go back in, do it for 6 minutes. And I'm like, go in every single day for an extra minute a day until you get comfortable. By the end of the week, they're like 45 minutes sitting there on the recumbent bike with their favorite music, watching their show on the like little screen, and they're starting to get into it. So it's part of that is meeting yourself where you're at.
Yeah.
And rather than saying, what is it that you can't do? I'm like, well, what can you do?
Yeah.
Out there. I'm like, do you think you can drive into the car park? Right? Do you think you can go outside your front door and walk up your street, to the milk bar, or as we call it here, it's like a little shop, maybe go buy a couple of things from the grocery store and then walk back home. So meet yourself where you're at. You don't have to believe in your goal yet. Most people don't believe in their goal when they set it. In fact, I'd say most don't, right?
Yeah.
But they start anyway. And that's what we were talking about at the start of the podcast was, don't wait for the right time. Don't wait for the right belief system, because you won't. Your belief system changes and the time becomes right when you get started, irrespective of the situation that you're in.
I feel like that's kind of like a life in a nutshell, like, you don't want to get up out of bed and go to school as a kid, but guess what? There's rules and regulations that say you have to, so you're pushed in that direction. You don't want to have to go and do your homework and then go and take a test, but there's kind of some rules and regulations that say you have to. But then when we get out of school, get out of that environment of those rules and regulations, so many people like forget that was like a blueprint. That was an example. We should be doing things that we don't want to do because we see that we progress in life. We went from first grade to 12th grade, and we graduated college by doing things we didn't want to do, but then we forget like discipline, that hardness. That's the only way to get us to where we want to be.
It's a good point. Discipline.
Discipline. Yeah. It's not motivation. I always say that to my girls. It's got nothing to do with motivation. You being able to achieve this goal will come down to the systems that you have in place to achieve your goal and discipline.
Yeah.
If you've got your system set down, and by system I mean you have an environment that you've set up where that you have a goal, and then you have a system underneath that goal that has what you're going to do every day to achieve the goal, what workouts you're going to do, when they're going to be done, what food you're going to be eating. So you have that system underneath it, and then it's just discipline to actually do it every day, turn up and get it done.
And that's anything, isn't it? Like, progress in any area of life has a process.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of days when I come home from work, and throughout the day I'm thinking, man, I just want to like play this video game for just like 15 minutes, and it'll just like satisfy this hunger. And by the time I get my dinner going, I maybe shower, I can, start doing my nighttime routine. I maybe do a little podcast editing. I maybe, do something else involving the podcast, whatever it is like that's in my routine for that day. It's that temptation. I forget it, because I'm busy doing other things. I have a plan. I have like a course of action. And I think people have this misconception that whenever you have all the options, you're going to be happy. But in reality, there's too many options, especially nowadays. The odds that you're going to make the right decisions if you don't have a plan, it's almost like hitting the lottery. If you want to try to just go in every single day without a plan and think you're going to get to your goal, it's just not realistic.
No, yeah, it isn't 100%. And, one of the things you talked about, you had this like unique craving to, get on a computer game and, fulfill your 15 minutes of what have you. And I'm like, well, the truth is that cravings, whether it be food cravings or a craving to do something, it's been scientifically proven to only last 7 minutes. So on a scale of 1 to 10, if you have this insatiable craving and, it's a 10 out of 10, all you need to do is distract yourself for 7 minutes. And that 10 out of 10 might drop to a 5.
Yeah.
Right. And then you give yourself another 7 minutes. And so like you're cooking, you're doing your nighttime routine, you're cooking your dinner, prepping your food for the next day, having your shower, cleaning up, you're doing your washing. And then you're like, oh, what was I supposed to be? Oh, that's right.
That's right. I was hang on a minute. An hour ago I was craving for that video game, and now I don't even want to play it.
Right. Well, one day I came in and I was like, you know what? I have a little extra time, so I'm just going to turn it on. But first I'm going to open my laptop and work for 20 minutes. Well, 20 minutes turned into like 2 hours and I never got to it. So yeah, it's funny, that 7-minute thing. I never even thought about that. That's funny.
Yeah, I had never heard of that either, actually. Yeah.
So it's because I work with a lot of clients that have like eating disorders. Like Rose, I had an eating disorder too. I was hospitalized as a teenager for it, and it is a chemical imbalance in your brain and your body's ability to be able to produce certain hormones and convert certain hormones like dopamine and serotonin and things like that. And for some people, there's trauma responses to that. For me, it wasn't a trauma response. And so it never really leaves you. But there are things that you can do to support and work through that, and obviously like with Rose, bodybuilding saved my life because, I was the fat little kid and then I went extreme and then I blew out again and then I found bodybuilding. and so, just like Rose, I and like yourself, I went off and studied my sports science we called it human movement, and then majored in psychology. And this was one of the things that came out back in 2002, that scientifically cravings last for 7 minutes. And that craving can be like a hormonal craving, or it can be like a psychological craving, you know. And all you need to do is distract yourself for 7 minutes. And so that was one of the things that, well, one of the first things that I work through with all of my clients is the psychological reprogramming, the neural pathways, like intercepting them, creating interventions in their current patterns. So do your current pattern, and then in between this pattern, insert 7 minutes of distraction. and then go back and try and do your pattern. And most of them actually find themselves going, well, I kind of don't want to.
Yeah.
I'd rather just have my, meat and 3 veg on the table, So I'm like, well, there you go.
No.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
If we were to standardize, let's say 18 to 22% body fat as what's normal, not the 28 to 33%, that's normal now here in Australia. So they're basing 67% of people.
7%, I know, that's
based on those numbers, based on 28 to 33%. Now, if we base it on 18 to 22%, what do you think that percentage is going to be?
Probably in the 80s or 90s, I'd say.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Easy. So what's going to happen in another 10 years or another 20 years? Oh, it's okay to be 50% fat, 50% of your body fat. Yeah. It's going to perfectly okay.
Well, I was talking to I can't remember what kind of doctor it was now, and I asked them that question. I was like, if I go to the doctor and they say you're in this percentile, what is that based off of? What's the standard of health? Like, really, truly, I want to know. Like, a lot of people don't care. They get their blood work back, or they get certain information back from the doctors. And it's like, okay, well, if I need a pill, give it to me. If I don't really care. I must have been good. I must be healthy. But for me, it's like, and for people out there who want to know, like, what is the standard? What is a good thing to reach for? We don't know it, because every time, in every 10 years, it's like, okay, a resting heart rate of 60 was good, in the 2020s, and in 2050, it's going to be a resting heart rate of 100. And
that would be coming down to looking at the research or conducting research, and then looking at the effects of different, for example, let's say heart rates, right? Someone that has a resting heart rate of 60 beats per minute, and looking at their health over in that particular context over a period of time, then looking at someone else that is at 100 beats a minute, right? Constantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and then looking at what are the effects of that. There needs to be more of like
there needs to be longitudinal studies that compare that, because I think you're right. There is no objective measure of health right now. It's based on, the population's we got an aggregate of the population, and then we did like a baseline across that, and then we checked out the median part of that, and then we thought, this must be healthy because this is what most of the population is. It's like, yeah, but you've also got health epidemics in these countries where you're looking at the general population. You've got obesity epidemics, heart disease epidemics, diabetes. I mean, diabetes is just...
It's like every second person's got diabetes or on the cusp of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then you have people who aren't thinking about it like we are, who think it is normal to be on diabetes medication at this age, and it is normal to be on blood pressure at this age, and it is normal to develop, have heart issues when you hit 60, and it is normal. All these things that aren't really normal human, things.
Yeah.
They aren't questioning it. They aren't thinking like, okay, well, no one's telling me that I don't have to live that way. I don't have to, not be able to get off the couch at 70. No one's being told what the potential is. And I think, like you said, there needs to be a way to find it other than just the average.
And that's the same in like clients' blood work that I've seen as well, where the standards of what is normal has changed and shifted.
Yeah, the panels, like where it says, this is a normal range, from this to this is...
Yeah. So this is where your thyroid function should be. This is where your glucose level should be. This is where your insulin levels should be. This is where your cholesterol levels should be, your enzymes, your white cell, red cell blood count. Like, I could give you blood tests from 10 years ago and look at those standardized, markers, as we call them. And again, they have shifted. They have decreased by 100%.
Wow.
And what's scary about that is that they don't ever come out and say to the public, hey guys, we're changing the standardized measurements. We're moving the markers, guys. Why would you be? And then you think, okay, well, every action has a motivation behind it, right? There's a reason things are changed. Yeah. Why would you want to change the measurements of your of what constitutes someone being obese? Oh, so that you can say things like, oh, only 30% of the population is obese. Well, if it's Australia, or only 67% of the population is obese on our new scale. But if we were talking about the old scale, it would be significantly higher, and maybe more people would kind of wake up and go, that's a real problem. 90-something% of our population is obese. Wow. But nothing's ever told to the public. They don't come out and say, oh, we're changing thyroid level function. It used to be this was normal, but now we're changing it to this. It's just odd.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's and then you have tons and tons of factors, new factors, whether that's different kind of pollutants and all kinds of things that are affecting it and affecting not just the way that people are choosing to live, but the way they're not choosing, the choices that they don't have any control over. It's a very interesting time for health. And, we could definitely talk on and on and on about all the rabbit holes of it and all the ways that things could be better. But I think at the end of the day, podcasts like this and podcasts like yours, are helping people on an individual level. And I think that that's truly what we can do. It's all that we can do. And I think that, we owe it to people out there to continue to do it. And, hats off to you guys for starting yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having us.
Yeah. And thank you for doing what you're doing as well, because that's why when you reached out to us, we were like, oh, he's doing some amazing work. He's doing great work. He's spreading, the message of health. And that's what we're passionate about. We want women to feel, and men too. When we say women, I think it's because our podcast is predominantly, a female audience, but we don't have anything against men. Like it's not like we're not excluding men, but we want people to be healthy and happy and to experience what Lisa and I have, which is great health, so much fun, traveling around the world, meeting people, competing, forming lifelong friendships with people from all over the world. It's a great lifestyle.
And even having not competed, but even just having a podcast and talking to two people from Australia tonight, tomorrow talking to somebody from, I believe Finland and England and, multiple states here around the country. And you meet people, you meet both very similar people who have a very similar passion, but also people who are very, very different in terms of like what their life experiences are. You really get a wide gamut of like what's out there, and you get these connections and this networking opportunity. And it's been a blast. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what the future holds. And like I said, it's been almost 3 years, and it's been an interesting ride for sure.
Amazing. And I've seen so many people love and like your podcast as well, and people of influence as well, because they know that what you're doing is a good message. We need more people like you here doing this, and being the weight room and talking about the diversity of not just bodybuilding in sense of stage prep, but having these conversations that we're having right now, and getting people curious to go down that road and say, if bodybuilding is being healthy and longevity and having energy and, you know, and bouncing out of bed in the morning, well, how can I get started? Rather than saying I can't, you know, what can you do?
Yeah.
Where can you start?
Right. No, that's an interesting perspective, and I think one that if it is pushed more, that like you said, how can I get started in this thing, and how, you know, I see all these people who are like happy and healthy and having longevity and things like that. I think that that is an interesting place, and we certainly don't have very much control over where the sport goes as far as like on a organizational scale, but if they choose to push it in that direction, I think it will be an interesting, you know, you see more with like the masters divisions and talking to people who are a part of that from both the athlete and promoter side. It has the potential to really shine a light on what bodybuilding can do for people in the long term from a health perspective.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more.
We love seeing the masters categories, and the standard of those athletes is incredible, you know, and they're in their 40s, 50s. Remember the 70, what's her name?
We've got her coming onto our podcast next month.
Goodness.
She's 72 years old. She's Wendy Fortino's client in the cyber shop of their business is her and her partners. Mrs. Miss and Mr. Sandman or something like that. I'll have to have a look.
Yeah, absolutely incredible.
Nice.
I could not believe the photos came up and I looked at her and it actually made me emotional because I was like, look at this woman. She's 71 years old and she is on stage and her skin looked amazing. You know, there was no sagging skin, there was no anything. She just looked incredible. And you know, then I'm looking at her videos of her training and just such an inspiration. And I thought, wow.
Incredible. Like, honestly, I wish I had. Oh, here she is. All right. Okay. This is her. I'm going to bring her up here so you can, I'm trying to think. Here we go. All right. Can you see that?
Yes. Yeah.
72 years old.
That's insane.
Get out of town, right?
Insane.
Get out of town. Like, what the actual? So when someone says, oh, you know, you don't get better with age. Well, hello, exhibit here. She is fitter than most of her grandchildren.
Right.
Like grandchildren.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't matter where you are in life, you just get started. Everyone has a first day. And you're gonna fuck it up a million times before you get it right. Right. And getting it wrong is part of the process. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to get started. That's it.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that episode. I think learning and sharing with people that is achievable through habit and not, that's just like a freak. That's not just a freak occurrence. That's not just like a, you know, she has great genes. That's hard work. That's stuff that you can do too. I think that will be a good message to share.
She's been active her whole life. And she's on no meds or anything like that. She's just been fit and healthy her whole entire life. You know, yes, you know, you have your cake and you can eat it too in your downtime, but it's been the rock that's carried her through to, you know, and, you know, after, you know, being an athlete, she found bodybuilding as well. And it was something else that, you know, now she's getting better.
Yeah, she's adding more muscle. Like over the last, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, this woman is actually, she's gaining
too old to put muscle on or to lose. Someone says, oh, you're too old to get started, or I'm too old to lose weight, or my ship has sailed, or I can't put muscle on, or what have you. And I'm like, wow. Every time I hear that, I send them her. And I'm like, look at it. She's one of many. It's just inspirational.
Well, really. From a bodybuilding perspective, I've never thought about it like this, but a lot of times when it comes to like finances or something like that, people will be like, "Oh, I wish I was started when I was younger. I'm too old for that." And I'm like, you know, that may be true. It maybe would have been better if you would have started earlier, but the way I see it is you're too old not to do it. You know, like you need to do it now more than ever. Like you're understanding that it's important. So do it. Like don't use the, I don't have enough time as an excuse. Use it as a motivation.
Or I don't have enough money. And I'm like, well, how much money are you going to spend fixing up your body when your body's broken because you haven't looked after it?
It's important for people to learn that it is the lifestyle. It's the habits. It's the routine. But I appreciate you guys coming on. It's funny that we got connected the way we did, and I found out about you the way that we did through somebody who's actually here local in my city, Autumn, Cleveland. And you know, it's so weird how that happened. You know, and you're in Australia, and me and Autumn are having a conversation in this room that I'm in right now, and then you know how that works out. It's just crazy.
Yeah, she's an absolute doll and such a gift to the sport with what she does, and like not just the sport, she's a DJ, she's an artist, like she's just she's incredible.
She has a lot going on. To say the least. She definitely has figured something out for sure.
That's right.
Once again, I appreciate you two both coming on here on the podcast on the weight room. It was great getting to chat with you tonight / this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.